Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Drums and Drams. My name's Cameron, and today I'm gonna be taking a look at the 2024 Boulder Spirits Cask Strength Bourbon Whiskey. This is bottled at 128.4 proof or 64.2% ABV. And I've gotta be honest with you guys, this bottle was not on my radar for 2024 until just a few days ago. Matt Porter, also known as ADHD Whiskey here on YouTube, sent me a text. He asked me if I had tried this 2024 edition of the Boulder Cask Strength. I told him that I had not, and he was like, look dude, you've got to get your hands on one of these. It's fantastic stuff. So I immediately went online because when Matt says that, when he recommends a bottle like that, you've got to listen to him. So I went online to their website, 85 bucks a piece. I picked up 2 of these. The shipping was crazy fast. So tonight I'm batching and recording a lot of content all in a row. Didn't expect this to be here, but here we are. I thought, you know what, let's throw this review in, just kind of in the mix of things that I'm recording. This is gonna be my first impression of this bottle. I have not tasted it yet. I've poured out a little bit for a sample for somebody else. My first impression is here on camera for all of you, so let's see how this thing does. 2 other quick pieces of information, the first of which is the batch size. There are less than 2,000 bottles in this 2024 batch. That is a crazy limited release, so I don't expect these to last long. And the last piece of information is that the youngest whiskey in this blend is 7 years, 4 months old. It is their own distillate. For them to have 7-year, 4-month as the youngest in this blend, cask strength, keeping the price at 85 bucks, I think this is a pretty cool release from Boulder Spirits. So let's go ahead and check this thing out on the nose now and see what we get. All right, so this is an extremely dark and intense whiskey on the nose. Honestly, it comes off just a little bit hot. I know it's 128 proof, feels more like 135-ish on the nose, kind of crawls up your nostrils a little bit. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I do think that's worth, calling out. But the primary note that I get out of the glass is some combination of root beer candies and kind of like a mocha cappuccino sort of combination. It's, again, super dark and intense and concentrated, and I love that about it. It leans more into a bitter sweetness than it does kind of an overt, traditional bourbon sweetness, I would say. So you get those kind of dark chocolate, baker's chocolate, coffee, mocha kind of notes. Again, thinking about that bittersweet combination. There's an interesting top note here as well, which is kind of almost Brown-Forman-like. It almost reminds me a little bit of a Jack Daniel's barrel proof bourbon or barrel proof rye, where you get that kind of banana note sitting on the top just a little bit. This is a little less banana, although I do think that's there, and more of like a juicy fruit gum that sits on the top, but no acetone, which I really do appreciate because some of those Jack products can have that kind of acetone, slightly, astringent chemical sensation on them. This does not have that. So while this does have a brighter top note to it, everything else about the whiskey is dark and concentrated, very aromatic. There's kind of like this cinnamon stick note in here as well. And then underneath all of those dark notes that I've talked about so far is just this little bit of a fruitiness, maybe like a blackberry or a plum, just kind of hanging out in the background. You could convince me that there's a dark cherry note in here, specifically maybe like a black cherry quality. But by and large, I think the fruit notes would take a backseat to just these intense, bittersweet, mocha coffee kind of things. The very last thing I'm gonna say on the nose before I take this first sip is there's also a bit of a charcoal or barrel char thing in here as well. So it's complex, I think in some ways. It's definitely a different experience, and I think it's gonna be, I'm gonna say it's gonna be a positive thing for a lot of bourbon drinkers, just off the nose. I think there's a lot to love. There's a lot that you can compare to products that you're already going to be familiar with, but also enough of a unique factor to this whiskey that it's gonna keep it fresh. You're gonna feel like you're getting a new experience while not going so far, into left field that it feels wacky or craft in any way. I like the nose, a little bit hot. Let's see how it does on the palate now. Cheers. All right, so this is a very powerful whiskey on the palate, just as you would expect from the nose. The palate is so gripping and so intensely spicy, just incredible amounts of like tingly black pepper spice sensation on the tongue. A little bit of that Pop Roxy kind of thing now in the finish, but loads and loads of fragrant aromatic cinnamon as well. I think this is a pretty solid product. I mean, at 85 bucks, even with a few little things here and there, I mean, you can complain about a lot of things about a lot of $85 products on the market, but at 85 bucks, when I think about, let's say, for instance, this year, the Smoke Eye Hill that everybody's been talking about, this mops the floor with Smoke Eye Hill. Maybe if you had a better batch of Smoke Eye Hill, which they do vary quite a bit, the best one that I've had up against this Boulder cask strength, I still think this is gonna win out pretty easily. It's darker, it's richer, I think it's a little bit more put together. The only complaint on the palate, which is, I don't know if it's similar to the nose necessarily, because I don't think it's too hot, but it's kind of a structural complaint, which is that as this whiskey rolls back on the palate and develops, I think it skips over just a small part of my tongue. Mid palate is fine, front of the palate fine. As it transitions to the finish, I feel like it just skips over the back of my tongue. And then afterwards, I'm left with this churning, intense spice, crazy long finish on this. But I do wish this would have hit every part of my tongue on the way back. Again, a small complaint. Overall, this is a really, really nice whiskey. Let's do another sip now and kind of dig a little deeper here on the palate. Yeah, this is just pure root beer candy on the palate for me. Once you acclimate to those spicy, characteristics that I just talked about, now the palate is all that black cherry and those root beer candies, so enveloping and syrupy and viscous on the palate. So I think this is a fantastic $85 bottle. Highly, highly recommended. The last kind of, criticism I might lob at this, and it's a personal preference thing for me, is that top note, that kind of banana juicy fruit gum, it sticks out just a little bit because the rest of this whiskey is so freaking dark and rich and intense. And I just love the way that barrel charcoal kind of thing and those mocha notes dance on your tongue in the finish. It's really rewarding. But that top note just distracts me a little bit from the other parts of this whiskey. That's just a me thing, and I'm not a big Brown-Forman fan, especially younger Brown-Forman. Take that for what it's worth. I would be so curious to hear you guys' experiences if you've tried this whiskey, so let me know in the comment section below. This at 85 bucks is freaking awesome. So, highly recommended. Matt Porter, you were right about this stuff. Cheers. See you next time here on Drums and Drams.